It took me a while to realize as I've gotten older that this is really one of my favorite trilogies of all time.
I haven't played these as much as I would have liked.
Dawn of Sorrow next year is going to be 20 years old.
But first, a word about this video's sponsor, NYXI. Back in 2001, the Nintendo GameCube controller was one of the best video game controllers I'd ever held in my hands.
Wow, that controller's small too. Hold it.
Thankfully, with the NYXI Wizard, we can still play like it's 2001.
Yeah!
NYXI is a gaming accessories company focused on gaming peripherals with cutting-edge performance and stylish designs. They sent me their NYXI Wizard wireless controller for Nintendo Switch, and I gotta tell you guys, I'm loving it. First off, this thing looks and feels just like a GameCube controller. Perfect for Smash Brothers, where, let's face it guys, the GameCube controller was best. With the Hall sensor, say goodbye to Joy-Con drift. The NYXI Wizard offers unique switching between hexagonal and circular analog sticks for greater precision or smoother motion. The triggers are extremely tactile and responsive. Also, something interesting I noticed was this very nice and discreet LED light on the buttons. Plus, there are 2 buttons located on the back, which can be mapped according to your preference. Guys, if you're interested, check out my link in the video description or the pinned comment. They're having a special sale right now during Amazon Prime Day. Thank you, NYXI, for sponsoring today's video.
Hey, it's your buddy Tyler coming at you with a brand new video here on My Retro Life, and I am joined today by my good friends Jose, right over here, and G to the next level. Just recently, we got the announcement and the stealth drop of the Castlevania Dominus collection on the for the Nintendo DS trilogy of Castlevania games on all modern consoles. An incredible collection that I'm just thrilled to have. It took me a while to realize as I've gotten older that this is really one of my favorite trilogies of all time. It's really one of the especially Dawn of Sorrow, a game that means a lot to me. And I've talked about that before here on the channel, the story of Dawn of Sorrow and how it tied into a lot of the last moments I had with my dad. So there's a lot of personal stuff there with that game. But I'm curious to know what y'all think of these games, and just what do you think about this whole trilogy getting re-released on the Switch, the Xbox, PlayStation?
Well, as a massive Castlevania fan, especially of, I guess, the more, the Metroidvania ones, it's awesome. I was actually really excited when I have more of a closer tie to the advance games, and I love those games. I haven't played these as much as I would have liked, but I'm glad that they're coming out with this collection so that I can revisit them and really get into them, especially Dawn of Sorrow, because I love Soma Cruz as a character, and I just love his the whole storyline. So I'm really excited to dive back into that.
I know I'm super excited about it because when it comes to Castlevania, I had a whole giant missed period when it comes to Castlevania, when it was starting to go from the the original NES into Super NES and the Genesis, of course, Super Castlevania 4 and Bloodlines. Of course, experienced both of those. And then Symphony of the Night rolls around on PS1. Loved it to death. And when I was going into the next portables, for some reason, I completely missed the Game Boy Advance games until they also got their own collection a couple of years ago. That's when I finally experienced one of them, an Aria of Sorrow. But there was always something about that openness of Symphony of the Night that I always wanted to play in another Castlevania game. And I had a PSP. I didn't have a DS until way, way later. So I completely missed all of this. And so when that got unveiled during the partner direct, I was like, wow, because they already did the advanced games, but now they're doing the DS games, and it opens up a whole new world for people like me that haven't really gotten a chance to experience it.
Yeah, what I love about these games is that the Game Boy Advance games and these is that they're like, a lot of people complain that it's another Metroidvania game, that sort of thing. But what I love about these is that they all play kind of different. They're all kind of dramatically different from each other. One of the things that some people complained about, especially early, because it was one of the earlier DS titles, is the use of the bottom screen. You use that a lot, the touch, to do certain combinations to fight, your bosses and things like that. And then, you had the other, I guess you could say gimmicks with the other games that were pretty interesting. So
yeah, it's fantastic. The guys that worked on this, the developers, M2.
M2.
They are the
M2's
masters when it comes
they do
to
good
porting
stuff.
these games, these classic games. They've worked with Konami before on the other collections, and you can actually use the Switch screen as a touchscreen, or they've made it so that you don't have to worry about that stuff. And actually, so like in Dawn of Sorrow, for instance, you have to destroy the boss fights end with you having to destroy the monsters and seal them into what's called a magic seal. And you had to use the drawing pad, the touchscreen, to kind of draw a seal on them. Well, in the new collection, M2 has made it so that all you have to do is do like a QuickTime button combination.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
That
that
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
It's so cool. They went into the code of the game and actually changed it and put that into it, and that's a lot of fun actually. That reminds me of other games that have QuickTime events, and some people don't like QuickTime events. It's not their bag, but honestly, it's better than having to draw it really. And so yeah, they've definitely gone in and made it so that you do not have to use the dual screen functionality, the touchpad. And I think that's just great because more and more people are going to get to experience these games that never did on the DS. Maybe that wasn't their era. Like you guys didn't necessarily play all of them in this series. And it's just really great because I'm just so happy people get to experience these games. These games, oh man, I don't know. It's weird. I look back on it and they meant a lot to me. I think when I did that video about Dawn of Sorrow, it really made me reflect on this era. And I'd kind of strayed from it because it's not retro, or at least it wasn't retro back when I first started doing YouTube content and a gaming channel. Mm-hmm. But we've gotten to that point, guys, where Dawn of Sorrow next year is going to be 20 years old.
No.
20
Don't do this.
years old.
We're not doing
I
this.
live it every day.
I feel, oh my God.
Portrait of Ruin is, on some days I play it and I'm like, man, this was genius what they did with the dual characters. Yeah. You can switch between Charlotte and Jonathan. Jonathan is like, and he's kind of like he is the son of Jonathan Morris. So this game more or less is actually a sequel to Bloodlines.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so you play as the son of Jonathan Morris, and he's teamed up with Charlotte, who's kind of a sort of like a Sypha from Castlevania 3. It's so great to be able to switch between the two. Jonathan for more of just your action, your straight up Castlevania style action with the whip. He gets a whip. You can also get all sorts of other weapons like in Symphony of the Night. Mm-hmm. But Charlotte has much more magic capabilities, and she learns what's called these tomes, these magic tomes, these books that you collect throughout the game, which give her different magic skills and abilities. And then you can do what's called a dual strike, which is like almost like having a charged up meter in a fighting game. When your meter gets charged up, you hit up and X, and they go into this like crazy like Marvel versus Capcom finisher. And it's just such a good game. And the music, guys, Yuzo Koshiro did much of the music in Portrait of Ruin, of Streets of Rage fame and other amazing games. So there's so many great things coming into Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. The one thing that also stands out in that game is the fact that they bring you out of the castle for the first time in this sort of Metroidvania setup. We'd been seeing that in Symphony of the Night, made that popular, but Portrait of Ruin, they were like, you know what, castle's getting a little tired. Let's shake it up a bit. So they combined, get this, Castlevania with Super Mario 64. Like literally. And there's different sections of the castle that have these giant portraits, Portrait of Ruin, that you basically jump into.
Yeah,
and you don't go, woohoo! You don't jump into it like that. But you get sucked into it. You press up and A or whatever. And you go to these different like areas of the region. So you go into these it's like an Eastern European town, like small village. And you actually go into these bakeries, right? And it's so cool, the attention to detail as you're jumping. Of course, you're killing all these monsters and evil creatures. But you jump on the platforms and all the different like cookies and bakery like items like fall from the shelf. There's so much attention to detail throughout everything in Portrait of Ruin. I feel like it's a more beautifully crafted game than Dawn of Sorrow. But you know what's missing from both Portrait of Ruin and Order of Ecclesia that I love so much that's missing that was in Dawn of Sorrow and Aria of Sorrow. And this to me, I think that's why on most days, Dawn of Sorrow is my favorite. The soul collecting ability.
Yeah, the soul collecting is a really fun mechanic. I'm really, that to me felt like the biggest evolution in the magic system in a Castlevania game. Is just this really cool, simple concept, really, because you're just absorbing the powers of your enemies, and it happens at random. So you have to, you might have to grind a certain enemy in order to finally get that.
There's a grinding component to it, and so it adds an even more, Symphony of Night ushered in RPG elements to the Castlevania series. Well, this added an even further RPG element, the element of grinding, to get these souls and capture them on the fly. It's funny, capturing it also made me feel like I was playing like Castlevania Pokemon, in a way.
Definitely.
But I loved that, and it actually it made the game highly addictive for me.
Yeah.
Because I would literally walk in and out of a room that had a certain monster or creature that I hadn't gotten the soul ability from yet. And I would just, like you said, grind it out over and over again. Because they actually list in the game, like the chance, like the rarity of how hard it is to get that soul. And so you're like, oh man, this one's really hard to get. I'm going to spend an hour here, sometimes just grinding away.
So one thing I was talking to G about is the Order of Ecclesia. What's really interesting is I like that they all have varied art styles in a way. So Order of Ecclesia really, really leaned into the Gothic art style.
And it looks more like Symphony of the Night.
Yep, I think that's why I was leaning into it a little more too. Plus the MC, like I just thought that was one of the coolest main characters.
Where Dawn of Sorrow is the most anime, I guess you could say, and then Portrait of Ruin kind of has the most, I guess you could say, vibrant kind of cartoony art style, like you're mentioning that village with the candy and stuff like that. So
a lot of Castlevania fans hated the art style change. Like it really made people mad, and people to this day will knock it. They'll talk about how awful the art style is, but it's got a little bit more of a Japanese anime. Looks like Yu-Gi-Oh! A bit of that time period.
That makes sense considering it's also Konami.
It does. Yeah. And you know what's so funny? I always thought this was hilarious. Not a lot of people talk about it too, but Konami, the artist, whoever they had work on the Dawn of Sorrow box art, they basically copy and pasted the alignment of the characters and the positioning. If you look at the Trauma Center Under the Knife DS box art, it is the exact same box art
orientation,
except there's a copy and paste thing that happens or that happened, and that's just weird and lazy. And I don't know why they did that, but underneath that laziness is one of my favorite games of all time. Now, Order of Ecclesia, you're bringing that up. Really, that's a fantastic one, too. What's different about that one from the other DS Castlevania games is they further wanted to go with that idea, that concept of let's keep bringing it out of the castle. They make you start off at a monastery, and you're training under this, like, monk, your character. And, like, she has these sort of magic powers where she can absorb glyphs, they call them, or glyphs. Glyphs, yeah.
Glyphs, yeah.
And it's so cool when you find those and you can use them, and you have a different sort of 1-2 button combination with X and Y where you can like change between the glyphs. And it's really cool. I love the way they do that. And like you were saying, they changed the gimmick up in each of these Castlevania DS games.
I hate saying gimmick because that sounds reductive, but
But gimmick's not necessarily a bad thing, though.
I love the name Order of Ecclesia too. It's just kind of a cool name.
It has that gothic thing. Yeah.
There's a very gothic thing going on in there. And what's cool is that you start off in that monastery and you kind of make your way to Dracula's castle in that game. It almost gives it a Simon's Quest kind of feel to it. The original Castlevania 2 on NES, where you're going from town to town, you're going through forests.
You're exploring the village.
The stuff outside of the castle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when you do make it to Dracula's castle in Order of Ecclesia, it is then a whole giant big castle that, just like the other games, that you can explore like Symphony of the Night. So it gives you the best of both worlds in many ways. Some people don't like the redundancy of like, it takes a while to get to that castle, but I like it. I think it's a nice change of pace, especially if you're playing these games one after another. They're all different enough that you don't feel like you're playing the same game.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
It's not quite like a Mega Man game where every single classic Mega Man game, it feels like
it's kind of the same.
It feels the same, but like one little unique twist here. It's not flipping it on its ear like something like this does.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's really nice. Man, just Castlevania, unfortunately, has not been represented well except for these collections.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And that's where I got to give Konami major kudos, is they're working with M2. They're working and listening to their fans. They're trying to make that comeback, and it kind of reminds me of like Sega, what they've been doing over the years, listening to the fans, putting out collections, putting out brand new games. We've got the new Silent Hill game, or it's a remake of Silent Hill 2 coming. So that gives me hope that maybe a new Castlevania game is in the works.
I feel like it is. I mean, when you're seeing the collections that are coming through, and you're seeing the love and the projection that are going on the other Konami games that they have been putting out this time, I think that Silent Hill release is going to be the real test to see. I mean, I have this gut feeling in my heart that Konami is at least planning something with Castlevania. I don't think they're letting it stay dormant, because if they did, we wouldn't be getting this. I think they've got something that they're cooking. And I'm excited.
I know it's a little different because it's it's an outside property, but also they put out the Turtles collection,
right?
Which was something that fans are vying for too. So I mean, and in this, and then the Advanced collection, I mean, they're on the right track to. I'm hoping and praying that they really try to come back with a really cool Castlevania, a new Castlevania experience.
Can't wait for it to happen. I hope it happens. This is a great step in the right direction. These are fantastic games, guys, and I really hope you check them out if you haven't. The collection's out there. It's really, for the price, it's a no-brainer for me. But they're fantastic. Really appreciate all of you joining us here today. G, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me at G to the Next Level, pretty much everywhere. YouTube, I'm on Twitch. I do Instagram, little Sonic Shorts, all kinds of good stuff. Just search for me. You can find me there.
Awesome. And Jose?
I'm on Instagram, just Jose Vela Jr. Just catch me there.
Awesome. And you know where to find me. If this is the first time you're here to the channel, do consider subscribing to the channel. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching today. We'll catch you next time. I can smell the wall pork chops already. Cut the background laugh. That's great. No, it's great. I'm going to keep it in there.
Nice.
I'm going to leave it in.
That's awesome.